Happy Friday, guys. Today, what we're going to learn about in section 3.5, as it says at the top of the page, is parallel and perpendicular lines. So, our objective by the end of today, you should be able to identify, graph, and write equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. So, parallel lines, just first off, what parallel lines look like. They look like lines that are never going to cross. So, if you look at two lines, it looks like they are never going to cross. Those would be an example of parallel lines. Now, just by looking at the equation, you can tell whether two lines are parallel or not by looking at the slope. The slope, m, of parallel lines are the same slope. So, if you look at two equations, and let's just say one of those equations may be y is equal to 3x plus 7 and maybe the other equation is y is equal to 3x minus 2. Then you look at your two slopes, both of them are 3, so you would have parallel lines. Next, let's talk about perpendicular lines. So when you look at perpendicular lines actually do cross each other, and they cross each other to create a right angle, a 90-degree angle. So to be able to tell that by looking at their equations, you can do that also by looking at the slope. The slope of perpendicular lines are what are called opposite reciprocals. So let's just talk about what opposite reciprocals actually mean, what they are. To be an opposite reciprocal, basically what that means is that they are fractions that look like they're flipped and are also the opposite sign. So as an example, what that would look like for just the opposite reciprocals part would be like if I had the fraction 1 over 2, which if you flip the fraction would be 2 over 1, and then put a negative in front would be negative 2 over 1, which would be the same as negative 2. So 1/2 and negative 2 over 1 would be considered opposite reciprocals. Or if maybe I had a fraction of, let's just say, maybe 4 over 7, which if you flip it would be 7 over 4. And then put a negative in front would be negative 7 over 4. Those would be opposite reciprocals because the fraction has been flipped and the signs are the different signs. So for two perpendicular lines, what those might look like in equations might be something like y is equal to 3 over 5. I'll try to write that a little better for you here. Y is equal and the other line might be something more like y is equal to negative 5 over 3, so the fraction is flipped, has an opposite sign, it's negative instead of positive, plus 7 or something like that. Because if you take a look at the slopes, one is 3 over 5, the other is, if you flip it, 5 over 3, but has a negative, so negative 5 over 3, those would be an example of perpendicular lines. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these equations, which for numbers 1 through 3, what you're trying to do, determine if the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or if they're neither of those two, then maybe they are neither. Okay, now looking at number 1, look at your first equation where it says y equals 3 over 5x plus 3, and right away you can tell what the slope is. You can tell the slope is 3/5. Now your second equation, you can't really do that so much because you don't have y by itself. So we need to get y by itself somehow, which means we really need to get rid of this 5x. So the way we're going to do that would be to subtract 5x from each side. Okay, so we are subtracting 5x from each side. So what that will give us when we subtract 5x is our current slope, if you look at the equation, is a positive 2. Our parallel slope, if it's a parallel slope, it's not going to change. It's still going to be positive 2. So what I need to be able to do, I need to be able to write an equation of a line that's got the same slope of positive 2 and goes through this point, 0, 3. Now if you want to, there's two different equations we can use here. We can either say that y is equal to mx plus b and use slope-intercept, or what'll probably be easier so we don't have to solve for b or do any of that kind of work would be to use the y minus y1 is equal to m parentheses x minus x1, because with that line, which would be in your point slope form, it'll be much easier to just kind of fill everything in, which we can do right away actually. We can just say that y minus y1, which y1 would be your positive 3 up here, is equal to, and we said it was going to be 2, and in parentheses x minus x1, so x minus our x value up here was 0, and just like that, you've got the equation of a line that's parallel and goes through that point. Same thing on number 2. So if you take a look at number 2 now, the slope would be whatever number is in front of x, so you're negative 1 over 5. Your parallel slope then always going to be the exact same, so negative 1 over 5. And again, I would recommend using your y minus y1 is equal to, and parentheses x minus x1. Which, for this one, let's see, I would have y minus my y value of negative 3. So y minus a negative 3 is equal to, m is my negative 1/5, then in parentheses x minus my x value, which was 5, and then I should be able to simplify this, because y minus a negative 3 would be the same as saying y plus 3, so y plus 3 is equal to negative 1/5, and then in parentheses you still have your x minus 5. And there's your equation of the line. Alright, so with the graph, we're going to do basically the same thing. First, let's find the slope. So let's use this point right here and this point right here to help us calculate the slope, which would be to go up by 2 and over by, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, so up 2 and over 4. So our slope would have to be 2 over 4, which will simplify to just be 1 over 2. And then for our parallel slope, obviously that would just be the same exact slope, so 1 over 2. And we want it to go through this point right here, which is at the point positive 2, comma negative 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 4. So when we write our equation, what we're going to say is we're going to say y minus y1, so y minus a negative 4 is equal to, our slope m is 1 over 2, and then in parentheses x minus x1, so x minus our positive 2. And then once again, you should be able to simplify, and say y plus 4 is equal to 1 over 2 parentheses x minus 2. Alright, so there's parallel lines. Let's start to talk about perpendicular lines. So, with perpendicular lines, we're going to write the equation of a line that's perpendicular now, given the slope and that point. So, on number 1, your slope is going to be this positive 5. So, what you need to do to find your perpendicular slope, this will be a little tougher than it was for parallel. First, let's rewrite our slope as a fraction. So, rewrite 5 as equal to, copy down your slope is 7, and then in parentheses put x minus your x value, which is negative 3 up here, so x minus negative 3, and then you should be able to simplify that. So the left side will stay the same, y minus 2 is equal to 7, and then what you should be able to simplify is what's in parentheses. So saying x minus negative 3, probably be better to just say x plus 3 there. And here would be the equation for your line. Alright, very last example here. And then you'll get to work on some homework. Here we go, number 3. So once again, we're given this line, and we want to write the equation of a line that's perpendicular and goes through the point that's on there. So let's look at these 2 points right here, which for those 2 points, my slope, I went up by 3, so plus 3, over by 1, so plus 1. So my original slope is up 3 and over 1. Now, that would simplify to be just 3, but to be able to find our perpendicular slope, we kind of want it as a fraction, so let's leave it as a fraction. So for perpendicular slope, think about flipping that fraction. Instead of having 3 over 1, we'd have 1 over 3. And then if our first slope is positive, then our perpendicular slope needs to be the opposite, needs to be negative. There would be our perpendicular slope. So the other thing we need to find is we need to find what this point would be. So if we went to the right by 3, down by 3, that would be the point 3 comma negative 3. So when we write the equation of our line, what we would say would be this. We would say y minus y1, so y minus negative 3 is equal to our slope, negative 1 over 3. And then in parentheses, x minus our positive 3. And once again, you should be able to simplify this. Instead of saying y minus a negative 3, let's rewrite that as y plus 3 is equal to negative 1 over 3 x minus 3. Okay, at this point, you should have finished the notes for today. Here those all are for you. Make sure if you have any questions, we will go over this on Monday, but maybe rewatch the video, rewatch the parts you need to see. As soon as you are done with all of these notes, go ahead and show them to the substitute that's there for you. He or she will give you the worksheet, which is your homework. It is worksheet 3.5. That is going to be what's due on Monday. So this is due Monday. We will do a homework quiz on Monday, so you need to have homework done. I will be checking that. Otherwise, guys, have a great rest of your day. Make sure you get lots done, get the homework done, and have some free time within the class. And I will see you on Monday.